my love a cherry that had no stone. I gave my love a chicken that had no... Oh. Yes, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. In a few days, in a few hours, tonight, on a Sunday night, this year, in September 27th or whatever it is, Sunday night is the Day of Atonement, and the light here is terrible. Okay, so much better. So we're going to learn a little Chassidut, some teachings of extreme piety. One of the more philosophical movements of Chassidut is Radzin. And the Radzin Rabbi of Blessed Memory of Gershon Chenoch, who passed away over 100 years ago and was a certified genius, wrote the following. God said to Moses, "Don't come at all times into the sanctuary." The Radziner didn't write that. That's written in the Torah. So God said, "Don't come at all times." At all times in Hebrew is b'kol et. So the Sifri, the Halachic Midrash, derives the laws regarding entering the Holy of Holies in the temple in Jerusalem from the phrase b'kol et, at all times. So in the sense, b'kol et represents Yom Kippur. Don't come at all times. At all times is a code for Yom Kippur. That's the day when the high priest was commanded to enter the Holy of Holies and perform the Avodah. Now, the Mei Shaloach teaches us that at all times, the Mei Shaloach was the Radziner's grandfather. So the Mei Shaloach, Rabbi Mordechai Yosef of Ishbitz, the grandfather of the author, teaches us that all times means all completion, all wholeness. This is because the being of creation reached its absolute completeness on the first Yom Kippur after creation. 10 days after the creation of man was the first Yom Kippur. The creation of man was on the 6th day of creation. The 6th day of creation was Rosh Hashanah. So 9 days ago, it was Rosh Hashanah. That was the anniversary of not the creation of the world, but the creation of man. And man is, of course, the completion of the world, on the 6th day of creation. So on Rosh Hashanah, the 6th day of creation, when man was created, it was God's desire from the very beginning of creation. Little tongue went out of whack a little bit there for a second. Okay, so on Rosh Hashanah, God's desire from the beginning of creation woke up. This is, as we say a number of times in the Rosh Hashanah liturgy, this day is the beginning of your works, reminiscent of the first day. The beginning of your works is the time when God's desire wakes up. We wake up accordingly on the first day, and remember the first day of creation on the 6th day. That makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, there's 10 days from Rosh Hashanah. Where's my finger? Oh. From Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur. There's 10 days. That corresponds to the 10 Sfirot. Yes, the 10 divine illuminations. So the Sfirot are illuminated vessels, spiritual entities that are an intermediary between God's essence and the creation that we experience. So the Sfirot, these illuminated vessels, are, so to speak, the building materials of all creation, and the inner building materials of everything. And they're not a physical thing. They're not something that you can see under a microscope. They're something that is considered the essence of everything in the physical world and in the spiritual world. It's an intermediary between the pure infinite light of God and the creation on all its levels. So they say there's 10 of them. So the 10, this is a reception all the way back to Abraham. You know that there are 10 Sfirot. mentioned in the verse, and it's hinted at, well, the first proof we have of 10 Sfirot is from the book of Chronicles, 1 Chronicles, chapter 29, verse 11. King David had a royal celebration after he and his son Shlomo had finished the preparations for the temple. And King David got out and he said, "Unto you, God, is the greatness, the strength, the splendor, the governance, and the divine preeminence. You are the head of everything." So the words in Hebrew are, unto you, God, is la gedula, va gevura, v'tiferet, va netzach, va hod. And so these very interestingly, all the way back in the Bible, we have the exact order of the 10 Sfirot. And it mentions the Sfirot already in the book of Chronicles. So King David said these, we just said that. So, and the last thing he said is, unto you is the rulership, the sovereignty, Malchus. So right before the end he mentions Malchus, the completion of being. What is Malchus? What is sovereignty? In the terms of our tradition, Malchus is the completion of the being of creation after the whole order of downward flow from the infinite through the spiritual worlds and the Sfirot. So Malchus is the completion. For man, the bottom line is Malchus. Malchus is the final product. Man's final and complete apprehension of anything and everything is called Malchus. So when we're looking at the scale, so to speak, of the Sfirot from above to below, you see that a higher Sfira will be less concealed, and a lower Sfira will be more concealed. So if you have from above to below, Keter, Chochma, Bina, Dat, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Sod Yesharim, Malchut. So the lower Sfira, Malchut, is the mostly concealed one, and the highest one, Keter, is the most revealed, and there's less concealment. It's just a revelation of God's light. And the further down you go, the more you have levels of concealment. And so finally, in this world, which we call Malchus, that God is altogether, almost totally concealed, except at certain times, after certain actions that can bring about a revelation. So, Malchus is the most greatly concealed. With such a level of concealment, the creation naturally has a feeling that it is separate from God and a separate entity. So this is, as is said in the oldest, one of the oldest Kabbalistic texts, Raziel HaMalach. It says in the book Raziel, after God created the world, He turns the light of His face away from the creation. This was in order to give the creation a feeling that it is a separate entity. With this feeling of separateness comes the whole completion of the experience of creation. In other words, if we didn't feel separate from God, we would not have an experience of creation, because otherwise we would be realizing that we are just a part of God and we would not feel any difference. But our separateness gives us the ability to look at creation, because the concealment of God's presence allows God's separateness, that allows us feeling our separateness from God, actually enables the midah of Malchut to exist. Malchus, again, is kingship, rulership. And it's expressed when man, in his capacity as a separate being, uses his own free will and crowns God as king over whatever he's doing. In other words, even in the darkness, in the separateness that we take out of our own choice, we choose to crown God over creation. That's why Malchus is kingship, sovereignty, because we're crowning God as the ruler. So the Talmud mentions how God completed His acts of creation and then ruled over them, which we'll look at in the next segment with the help of God.